Good morning. My name is Jeremy Davis. I'm doing a presentation on organizing events with WordPress. My contact information I'll have on the last slide too, if you don't catch it here. I'll start off a little bit talking about myself. I started out in the Marine Corps. I did 5 years. I got out and I did I started a business. That's me on a bucket truck there, and then I had that going until I deployed to Iraq and was North Carolina National Guard. And then when I came back, I've been pretty much full time with the North Carolina National Guard ever since then. So when it comes to events, I've been doing events for the military for about 20 years now. So I mean, in the Marine Corps and in the National Guard, done a lot of things that are related to events and ceremonies and award ceremonies and that sort of thing. Next I'm going to talk about real quick the North Carolina National Guard Association. Kind of what got me started. That's where I discovered WordPress. I was doing some research on successful people, and I noticed that everybody that's successful has a bio with a lot of experience with nonprofits and associations and that sort of thing. So I decided, well, I'm going to get involved. Started out with them on the finance committee, and it was during 2007. The economy was tanking, and we were trying to figure out ways to, stay around and raise money and save money and that sort of thing. Well, about that time, the communications committee chairman had a stroke, and they needed somebody to fill in. So I said, all right, well, I'll do that. And they were already in a contract with a web developer for $10,000 to build us a new website. And at the time, I really didn't know a whole lot about web design. So what I did, I started getting quotes from different companies to find out, whether or not we were getting $10,000 worth of web development or not. And during that time, I discovered WordPress, and I set up a site, and had the content management system and all that stuff. We actually had more with the WordPress site than what we had with a contract for $10,000. So I didn't make any money for the National Guard Association, but I saved them a whole bunch of money. And that's where I discovered open source stuff. I've gotten into a lot of open source things since then. Obviously, I'm helping with this All Things Open conference. That's been real successful the last 2 years. That's actually right around the corner. Let's see, I went on from there. I ended up serving on the Triangle Linux User Group steering committee. And my job there, I was the PR officer, and we'd find like speakers and that sort of thing, and then I would get the word out to all the other groups in the area to kind of promote it. And I ended up getting those folks to help me out. I ended up I was lead organizer for WordCamp 2013, so that was a pretty big event, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of that later on. And my most recent event, my most recent thing I've been working on is my wife and I did we launched a new WordPress site for the Public Relations Society of America, North Carolina chapter of the Public Relations Society of America. They do a lot of events. They've got a big event coming a couple weeks from now. Actually, we've been real busy with that. It's all about forums and that sort of thing, getting the word out and that sort of thing. So I'm going to be hitting on some of those items. Does everybody hear me all right? Event basics, I'm not going to read through all these, but the big things, you got to work with sponsors, you got to find them, you got to get stuff out of them and information from them, and then you got to keep them happy afterwards, so they'll sponsor you again next year, right? So food, you got to figure it out, if you got people out with food allergies and that sort of thing. You got to work with the community and that sort of thing, and obviously the venue. Venue doesn't have a whole lot to do with WordPress, but all this other stuff, you're gathering data. And it's a lot of information, scrubbing rosters, contact information, that sort of thing. One thing I've learned is, with some of these organizations that I've helped out, they wanted like an end-to-end solution with their communication stuff. And there's a lot of things out there. I'm not going to mention any of those systems, but all the systems I've tried to help these folks out with that promised an end-to-end solution, they all fell short somewhere. And usually it was in the form building capabilities. So this is what I tell folks: a Frankenstein of integrated best-of-breed solutions is better than an end-to-end business product with a bunch of mediocre solutions. So some of the comparisons with WordPress, they've got a proven track record. You're always going to be able to find developers to help. Like if you really get into trouble with WordPress, you can always find developers to help you out with it. Let's see, all the solutions for WordPress are indexed with Google. And obviously if you're working with a vendor, you know, they've got all their stuff online cleaned up. There's not a whole lot of forums on there in a lot of cases. You end up with tech support, and a lot of times tech support's, you know, not nearly as good as, you know, the forums and stuff that are already indexed with Google. So I'm not going to handle that too much more, but just do your research. And I always promote open source and free and open source stuff. So this is the Frankenstein of items that I like to use. WordPress, obviously, Gravity Forms, I've been using that since like 2008, I think, and it's been real solid ever since. I've never really had a problem with it. Lately, as far as payment gateways, I've been telling folks to try out Stripe. If you ever try to set up a payment gateway with you know, some of the other you know, vendors, I mean, you can spend weekends on that trying to get it set up. Stripe is real quick and easy to set up. They're real good as far as security and PCI compliance. You know, the information goes straight, it's encrypted and goes straight to their servers. They go over your servers, my understanding of it.
Now, how would you compare it to PayPal?
So PayPal is probably the biggest thing. And I've got some slides ahead on this. PayPal, for example, your PayPal Pro is pretty nice. You can integrate that with your site. You can have, you know, your payments and everything accepted right on the site. It's like a seamless transaction for the user. But that's $30 a month. So Stripe will do the same thing. It's free until you make a transaction. You know, so it'll charge like a % of your transaction. But in the meantime, you know, you've got that on your site. It looks professional and everything. And like PayPal does have a free, you know, they'll accept credit cards, but you know, send your user off site, and what they get is not a real good experience. I mean, you get there, and yes, they can, you know, make a transaction with a credit card, but you've got this really big, you know, you have to, they feel like they have to set up a PayPal account to make a transaction, right? And then if you look down in this little, you know, corner, well, yeah, you can make a transaction, but it's not a good experience for your subscribers. So.
Is the transaction cost similar to PayPal?
My research is it's cheaper than PayPal up to about $5,000. And once you get over that, you know, it starts getting cheaper for PayPal. But
you say like it's $5,000 total, or
yeah, total.
An item?
I believe it's total. So like if you start using both of them side by side, when you get to about
maybe 5,000 a month or 5,000 for
total sales.
For a month? What's the period?
Up to $5,000, whatever the period is, I think. Now, well, I guess, if it's a long period of time, you're going to be paying $30 a month for the PayPal Pro. You know, so Stripe kind of compares to PayPal Pro, the experience that you have. So, you know, if you don't do a whole lot of events and you're just paying for the service, then $30 a month, it doesn't make any sense, right? You just well have Stripe in there. If you're doing some huge sales and that sort of thing, you might want to do some price comparison there.
It also depends on how big the sale is, because the transaction price, it just really depends on what you're doing. You got to compare the numbers.
Now, with
PayPal. After PayPal.
What's that?
Let's move on. What's after PayPal?
All right, so when you're doing an event, a lot of times you do it with an organization or something like that, and you're probably going to have folks that may or may not be all that tech savvy, so you want to make it as easy for like the administrators or the organizers of the event to. What I like to do is set it up so folks can post in one place, and then they get the information, wherever they are, on social media, their email, and that sort of thing. So, WordPress gives you that RSS feed. I've been using Deliver It. It's dlvr.it. I don't know. I've been using it 5 or 6 years. I've never had a problem with it, and it does a really good job of taking your WordPress posts and it turns it into like a nice tweet, that makes sense, looks good. And it also sends your post to Facebook or Google Plus or your LinkedIn groups or whatever. So you can post it on your WordPress site, and it'll send it out to all your social media, and then MailChimp integrates the same way. It monitors your RSS feed. You can set that to send it out to your email subscribers. So what it does is it sets it up so you can post your information about your event in one place, and everybody gets it. You don't have to mess with social media or anything after that. For the most part, you just kind of post it and forget about it. So. This is an example of one of those proprietary systems I help a group with, and this is the capabilities of their form. And as you'll notice, there's only like 2 fields here. You got quantity and you can pick the amount of donation, and I think once you pick that, it sends you over like a credit card, take your credit card information. This one's another system, but it's pretty much the same thing. You got your credit card information, and you got like, you can pick an amount, pick your, I mean, there's not a whole lot of functionality with the form. Generally, if you're going to be doing an event, you're going to need a whole lot more than that. This is an example of what I got from one of the organizers of an event. He said, this is what we need the form to do for registration. And when you start looking at this, it's actually quite a bit of conditional logic that you're going to need to do your event. So you've got like, it's a different price if you go to like, for example, they're doing a seminar. If you go to the seminar only, it's one price. If you're going to the seminar and the dinner, it's another price. If you're a student, it's a different discount. If you're a non-member or a member, then you get down, let's see. If you start breaking out all the things that it needs to be able to do, there's a whole lot of variables that you're going to possibly have. And then, discount codes, you want to be able to, once they've got their totals, be able to apply discount codes. They may want to gather name tags. You want to do all that in one transaction. If they're buying tickets for your event, you're probably going to want name tags. So you might want to have some fields for that. And another thing is all this stuff here, you want to be able to accept various quantities of all these different combinations. Because if you're doing a professional event and you've got like an accountant or something like that, that is going to buy tickets for their department of people, some of them may be going to the dinner, some might just be going to the seminar, some of them might be members already. So you want to be able to buy quantities of each different combination there. So.
Well, the most important thing is to tell them your thing is way too complicated.
Yeah, well, you can do that.
No user's going to understand that.
What's that?
No user's going to be able to figure that out.
Right. Well, now, that's all stuff in the back end, and usually when the people that make the registration form, they don't understand any of the technicality stuff that goes on behind it. You get that, and you're like, so yeah, half of it is trying to work with them and tell them, hey, keep this simple, right? But,
Doesn't Eventbrite do all that stuff though?
It does. It does a lot of that stuff, and you can use it. But there's some things I'm going to get to Gravity Forms that Gravity Forms will do for you that Eventbrite won't necessarily do for you. I'll get to that in a minute. And I've seen Eventbrite used a lot, but I've never used it myself. I'm not sure how much they charge, all that sort of thing. I know they charge a certain amount. So, you definitely won't be able to do all that with this form. And you definitely won't. There's no way you're going to be able to do it with this. So, what I have done, I've used FormStack, and I've used this in the past when I was really concerned about security. When you do your transactions on here, it's like a software as a service, but they've got everything encrypted, 256-bit encryption, so the data at rest, even the employees at FormStack supposedly aren't able to access your stuff, so you can feel pretty good about it being fairly secure. They've got a lot of options here. You get your radio buttons, credit card stuff. But my next slide, of course, that's $39 a month, and it's pretty limited how many forms you can make. So the plans get much more expensive after using a couple forms. So this is Gravity Forms, and if you'll notice, these are all the options that you have in Gravity Forms, and a lot of the fields, if you flip back, a lot of the fields they're all here. But in addition to the fields on the other form, FormStack, you usually have to go off-site. So you make a transaction, it usually goes off-site. Gravity Forms will be built into your WordPress site. It's also got post fields. And so when you
Excuse me for 1 second. So by off-site, you mean what happens, and I just want to explain this for people in the room. It takes the user out of your experience into FormStack's experience. Right. They transact in FormStack, and then they have to come back to your site. And this is why it's more beneficial. You have Gravity Forms that's more integrated.
You have total control of what happens. The whole user experience, you have granular control of what happens.
Right. So what do you mean by post field?
So post fields, I'm going to give some more examples on this towards the end. I'm going to actually get quite in a bit of detail because this is one of the best things about Gravity Forms is the ability to the way that I've used this. If you got like a sponsor that's going to make purchase like a sponsorship level, you got to gather some information from them. And what I like to do is with the post fields, you can concatenate fields from the form, and you can build. You can make whatever they enter in. You can put that. It'll directly place that into into the title of the post. And then for the body, it'll concatenate whatever fields of information into the body of, and then you can tweak the HTML, and you can get it to format the way you want to. So when the sponsor gives you the money, they they do the transaction, they give you the logo, they give you like some some information, you concatenate all that stuff, and after they submit it, you can go in and take a look at that, and the post is ready. All you have to do is hit publish. And it's already in there.
I see what you mean.
So your sponsors get all the recognition, and all you have to do is hit a button that goes, it's a post, and then it goes out to your social media, it goes to Twitter, it goes to your email subscribers, hey, we've got a new. So you can't do that with any of the other options out there. So
Yeah, how much is Gravity Forms?
$199 for a developer license. I highly recommend that one.
Okay.
You can buy it for just one. I bought this in like 2007. I cannot tell you how much I've used it, but that's about the best $200 I've ever spent.
But it's per year.
Well, you can buy it one time, and if you want, support from them, I guess you can buy it every year. But
Okay.
I bought it once, and I've never. You can always go download a fresh version of it and upload it. You can always access, and plus you also have access to all their with the developer's license. You get access to all their add-ons. So, let's see. Of course, you can set up all the confirmations, notifications. When somebody registers for an event, they're going to want a copy of everything so they can write it off on their taxes, right? So you need to make sure they get an email copy. You've got to go in and manually set it up.
Now, are you saying that you can automatically kind of update like a Facebook comment or LinkedIn or Twitter through that post capability?
Yes.
Great.
So Delivered is an awesome service that does that for you.
Oh, so that's what you use for that, not Gravity Forms?
Yeah, and I've got a slide on that
Okay.
ahead too. So, Gravity Forms also has like some report capabilities and that sort of thing. And all your entries, you can all export all that into a spreadsheet. You're done. So these are all the add-ons that you can use with Gravity Forms. There's payment gateways. You got Dropbox. You've got a lot of your MailChimp. A lot of your mail stuff.
CRMs.
CRM.
Yeah.
The ones I like to use the most are Stripe, Coupons, and MailChimp. Coupons, that applies the discount code. Like if they purchase a number of items and they get a total, the coupons makes it so if you give somebody a coupon code, they can enter that in, and it'll add like a 15% off to the total. So that's a separate add-on that you have to use. But Stripe is a payment gateway. MailChimp, it actually integrates with MailChimp where you can they can sign up and it'll add their email information to your MailChimp account. So your mailing list grows when they fill out forms on your site. And MailChimp gives you that separately, but it's nice to have it all in one form when they're signing up. So
a lot of the other billing gateways seem to have coupons. Is there something about coupons that that particular site that is away and far away and above what is already in most of the payment gateways? What makes them exceptional?
the coupons,
Yeah, that particular, other than the fact that they accept coupons.
I don't know that it's exceptional. I just use it a lot because it's just something you have to. It's not already when you install Gravity Forms. It's not something that's already built in. It's just an add-on that you have to install, and then once you install it, you've got the capability. So it's pretty often that you need it. But this is an example of Stripe. On your site. This is kind of what it looks like on built. Right into your site. You can accept credit cards. I've already kind of covered that. You can accept credit cards on your site, and PCI compliance is good. It's easy to set up. When you're a lot of times when you set up these other accounts, you have to do things like put a couple cents in your account, a couple cents come back, and they have to verify who you are. Well, Stripe makes it easy to. They can use your LinkedIn account to verify who you are, and then you're up and running. So you can be up and running in just a few minutes with Stripe.
The biggest problem with Stripe though is the 7-day. I've used Stripe before, and it's the withholding your money for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
So I personally have FormStack with a merchant account, and I get my money in a day and a half instead of it costs more, but it's a trade-off. But waiting that 7 days can be difficult for a small business.
The one thing that need to mention about
this as well, is that you need an SSL certificate,
Yeah,
for
to have.
having that on the site.
Yeah, you can also get one that has a lot of, like $1 million liability as well, so.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think with GoDaddy, you can get them for like $10 a year.
Yeah, you can get it, I think you can get it cheaper, but, I mean, even if you got the SSL, you're still at risk, I mean.
There are different levels of SSL.
Yeah.
There's the cheapest SSL that in the green area in the browser bar, it won't tell your company name, but there's as you go up the SSL plans, you'll get what they call the padlock, that green padlock. It'll say, you notice Amazon says Amazon Services, right next to the padlock. But they're paying like $200, $300 a year for that. So it depends on how much you want to pay. But for example, at WP Engine, which I host, they have an integrated SSL option that's $40 a year. So, you could buy it independently and install it yourself on your server, or you can go through your host provider. They'll install it for you. All of them have different pricing for different levels of SSL certification.
And if you want to be real cheap about it, you can set up an account with Cloudflare, and they have a plugin, and you can have SSL
For free.
with them.
Yeah.
But you'll have some CSS stuff to work around with and that sort of
Yeah.
thing. But you can do it. I've done it for
What is that site you said?
Cloudflare.
Cloudflare will handle your DNS, will take over your DNS, and if they take over your DNS, you'll be able to check off a box for flexible SSL, but you'll need to install the flexible SSL plugin from Cloudflare to work with Cloudflare, and then they'll provide you with free SSL, which is nice if you want free SSL, but if you want that padlock with your company name, you have to go through a validation process with the SSL certifying authority to be able to validate you as a business. You're a corp, an S corp, a C corp, an LLC, and all that. So if you want to go up to that level, you have to pay more. If you just want free SSL, like you said, you can get Cloudflare, but you'll want to convert your DNS from your host provider and hand it off to Cloudflare, and then Cloudflare will handle your DNS and a bunch of other things like caching, minification, a bunch of stuff that's not covered in this. I'm sure this, but it's a whole nother ballgame.
And I think we do have a guy that I talked to last night at the speaker thing that he's going to do a talk on HTTPS. I think most people get HTTPS wrong or something like that, and he seems to be real knowledgeable. He gets real deep into all that stuff. So we got a talk today that's on that topic entirely. So one of the things about software as a service, if you use that with some of these proprietary systems, they do manage the hosting and security. If you set up a WordPress site, you have to keep up with some things yourself. If that's the case, managed WordPress might be a good option. The host will kind of manage the security in the back end and that sort of thing, and you still have most of your flexibility that you would have with any WordPress site. So, let's see. All right, so I see some people talk about using a mobile app for an event, and obviously you can, but I think in most cases, now that we have responsive WordPress themes and that sort of thing, you can pretty much do everything you need with a responsive design WordPress site.
Now, what do you mean by responsive?
So responsive means that it will
adapt to the.
Yeah, it identifies the size of the screen that's being used, and it reorganizes everything so it fits that screen properly.
Okay.
So in a lot of cases, that responsive design, you can use that in lieu of an app. Some people like the idea of an app, but I know when I go somewhere, I don't necessarily want to install an app and agree to a bunch of permissions and stuff. I'd rather just hit the link and it'll be there. And I also like to use, this is one of my favorite plugins, Shortcodes Ultimate, and it's really easy to make buttons. And you don't have to use any code or anything. You just kind of, you make some selections and you can make some real nice buttons, and it's hyperlinked wherever you want to go. So
now, why wouldn't you want your form plugin to make your buttons? Are these separate from?
Yeah, this is well, with a WordPress site, when you're organizing an event, you've got a lot of information. You got to navigate them to your registration page and things like that. So I'm just talking about the overall WordPress site, I guess. Now Gravity Forms already has it's already got buttons built into that. So,
Plus, the other thing about linking to it, if you get an email newsletter from an event and you want to sign up for that event, and you want to click on a link, we haven't really perfected yet web to mobile deep linking. So like if you click on a link on your mobile phone, that actually opens an app to a page where you can subscribe. That's all being worked out over the last year or two, right, in the mobile world. But it's better to have an on-site, just payment experience and the mobile responsive on mobile, where you just pay right there instead of opening an app to try to pay for something you just pay for online anyway.
Right. And all this stuff with gravity forms, all these forms, you can go straight to it with your mobile phone. You can make your purchases, you know, right over your phone. So you can sign up for an event with it. So some of the things to consider, I mean, you know, when you're making a solution that's going to help you with your event, you know, there's all kinds of operating systems, browsers, mobile devices, tablets, desktops, laptops, multiple versions of each. Every time there's an update, then you got another version of it. So there's all kinds of things out there. So one of the things I like to, this is just me, I don't know about other designers or whatever, but I don't use drop-down menus in the navigation bar. I've done away with that, and I've seen it fail too many times. And if you got a lot of information deep in your site somewhere that they need to get to, and then your navigation bar fails because, you know, some browser on some cell phone or something like that you're not, you know, sure of, that means they might not have the address to your event. If they're on, they might be on their way to your event and they can't find the address because, you know, your navigation bar is failing or whatever. So what I do is I take the buttons, plug in the shortcodes ultimate. I use it to make buttons. And I just make a page with these big buttons. You know, on a mobile phone, it's really easy to hit these big buttons with your thumb or whatever. And I just put like a description for each item, you know, where it's taking you. So, you know, this reformat's really good on your mobile device. And most every device out there understands, you know, links and text. I mean, so you know, you're not going to have a whole lot of compatibility issues if you kind of use that idea there.
And what was that plugin?
But the one that makes the buttons is Shortcodes Ultimate. Makes these buttons like this.
And the ones on the other page? There?
All these buttons were made with that plugin.
Okay.
These are sites that have a...
Yeah, just want to add, some theme frameworks, like the Make Theme framework from Theme Foundry, have a button manager that you can actually make buttons already. So yeah, you can have the plugin, but you want to look in your theme that you're using, and they may have a button maker as well.
You can make all kinds. They have all kinds of options with it. You got like 3D buttons, and you can really make some neat buttons with that thing. This is like a screenshot from the delivered account. So if you have a delivered account, you know, just plug your RSS feed. I think just copy and paste the address in of your RSS feed, and then it'll ask to like verify with your social media accounts that you have associated with the event or the organization. And you know, once you set this up, you can pause it, or you can you know, set it up for every 15 minutes or something. It'll just monitor that feed. Once you make a post, within about 15 minutes, it'll post it to your social media networks.
Question: why are you posting when somebody signs up to an event? Are you posting like that they signed up, and you're publicizing that so and so signed up for your event, and you're sending it out into social media? You
can. I don't usually publicize when the registrants do, but when the sponsors
do. The sponsors.
And another thing I was going to get to later on is, you know, you got your sponsors, and what I've done in the past is I also will set up a form. It's kind of like a sponsor form, but I set it up for like the partnering organizations in the area. So like, you know, if we're doing a Linux event, you know, the Python guys and the PHP guys and things like that, they might be interested too, right? So they have their own groups in the area. So I'll set up a form for them as well, and you know, if they'll give me, you know, they'll take their logo and they can put a little blurb about their organization. And obviously they don't charge them anything, but we give them exposure if they'll share our newsletters with their list.
So it's just auto-publicizing that they're a sponsor.
Yeah, it just makes it real easy to put it out. You know, once they once they submit the form, you get all that information in one shot, and then really all you got to do to give them the recognition that they deserve is just hit a button and publish.
Right.
You're done.
Is the generic function here for Deliberate to create an RSS feed to your different accounts? Is that what Deliberate does?
It pretty much, it just sends your post. Like when you post something, it takes that and it'll send it to, if you got a Facebook page, it just sends a Facebook page, it sends a post to your Facebook page. And it'll make a tweet that's, it's got the short URL, and it'll shorten it down, and it does a real good job of making your tweets automatic. So
it seems to me with the user's permission, when they sign up for your event, you'd want to have it posted on their Facebook page or their LinkedIn page. Hey, I'm going to this, I've just purchased a ticket for blah, and then all their friends would know about that, with the user's permission.
Yeah. Or, well,
Or both.